This segment of the Sports Narrative Radio Show is backed by Xena Communications. Internet, Wi-Fi, IT, cloud services, and security cameras. Get connected in your home or office today. Call or click for your free consultation in the DFW area.
Stick it in the bottom. That's what she said. That's about as close as we can come to getting that thing dumped off. Hey, we need a guest on air.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bowers is currently
he's got him. Let's get him on camera here real quick.
Norm ready to get on
Getting
the air.
Norman with us. Norm missed my perfect sponsor read. Man.
And there we are. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen of the Sports Narrative Show, we are going to... Woo, that was loud.
Yeah, don't yell into the microphone.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to. All right. On our phone lines now, Mr. Copening, we have my radio mentor, a Radio Hall of Famer, Texas Radio Hall of Famer, just past 40 years in the business, and a man I am privileged to call my friend, the great Norm Hitzges. How are you doing, Norm? How was the travel show, sir? Heard on KTCK, the ticket here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Norm, this is your first time maybe on the YouTube, I think, as a participant.
I love talking travel, and it's the second time we've done the show, Barry and myself. Just about not. We don't want anybody to think we're travel experts, but we would like to pass on a bunch of the stuff we found when we travel, and we actually like when people send us things they've found really helpful when they travel.
Yeah,
and we love talking.
Of course, and talking travel is always fun. I actually have my a trip planned in about a month. I'm heading up to Whistler, Canada for the first time.
Oh man!
Yeah, a little Four Seasons action, so that's not rough.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place. Beautiful country.
Hey, Norm, this is Dustin. I'm going to head out to Granbury in a few weeks, and just wondering.
Well, now I'm familiar with that also. I've got a friend who lives in Granbury, one of my best friends. You'll be passing through the thriving megapolis of Acton.
Yeah, it's very impressive. There's a Walmart, and the Nizza Pizza shut down, though. We were kind of depressed when we went through last time and found that out. But, that's how it goes.
All right, well, we're going to get rolling here, Norm. I'm going to rapid fire you some questions. We're going to start off with some Cowboys talk as you spent a couple weeks out there in Oxnard. And I want to start with, I guess, the biggest question on the team right now, which is, of course, the running back position. You got to interview Joseph Randle up close and personal. What were your takeaways just from him overall and just where you think this team's going to be?
Well, I think this team will miss DeMarco Murray. Because DeMarco Murray did everything. He ran, he caught, he blocked. DeMarco Murray's impact went way beyond the almost obscene number of carries the Cowboys had him work last year. And I like teams who have the running back. In other words, I don't like running back by committee because running backs have different characteristics. Mm-hmm. And a line gets used to characteristics. They block certain ways, and they understand the runners. I would love to see somebody take over the job on the Cowboys. I'm just a little bit annoyed at anybody can run behind that line. Well, we have anybody's. The question is, do we have a Murray? Do we have a Le'Veon Bell? Do we have a Jamal Charles, an Eddie Lacy, people like that? I think the Cowboys will do okay with what they have, but I do think as the year goes on, we're going to realize that DeMarco Murray didn't leave as much meat on the bone as we thought he did.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and it's ironic because so much now you have so much of the devaluing, especially at draft time, one of the things that we do. The devaluing of the running back position, and yet, as you said, when you don't have that lead horse, teams are going to game plan differently for you, I think.
What's funny is you're exactly right here. you look at the teams you fear in the league, and Green Bay became a more feared team when they got Eddie Lacy. Mm-hmm. And look at Indianapolis. Everybody's saying, man, if they could only run the football. Well, now they're hoping Frank Gore has a year left in him. And you look around the league, and the Murrays, the McCoys, the Bells, the Lacys, the Jamal Charles, everybody now looks at Minnesota as a dangerous team because Adrian Peterson is back.
Exactly.
And yet, people will devalue the running back. They'll say, oh, you only get him for 3 or 4 years, then let him go. That may be true, but if you get 3 or 4 really good years from a running back, that changes your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's one of the things that I actually have thought about here in the last couple of weeks just with the running back position. And, you know, we've often talked, Norm, especially at draft time, of, you know, the idea of taking a quarterback you know, every so often just to kind of have one in the system to churn them along and that kind of thing. And I actually think it might be best if you take a quarterback one year and the next year take a running back and just kind of have those skill guys churning in the system so you have those people there and maybe one of them turns into that guy.
I agree. I very much agree. Because you look at the Cowboys right now, and there are way better players on this team than the running backs. But if you lose either McFadden or Randall to a serious injury, what does your team look like?
Yeah.
Is Dunbar ready to carry the ball 10 times a game as the number 2 runner? I have my doubts. He's a very usable, nice special teams player and a pass catcher out of the backfield. But how confident are you that he can block the linebacker to keep him off Murray and keep him off Romo and rolls like that? The Cowboys, you can't fix everything in a year.
Right.
In the draft here, the way it broke, Jeff, as you particularly know, the way it broke, there was no runner that presented himself at round 2 or round 3 or round 4 that said, I belong to go here to you right now.
Were you surprised they weren't a little more aggressive making a jump up for a runner?
Yes, I was, but now that I see the talent of Gregory, and we still got to see if he can hold all of his life together, but as Gregory got to them, and it became more and more apparent that Gregory was going to get there, that's where I think the Cowboys could have moved, but didn't.
Yeah.
And as I would have liked, I think both of us would have liked the kid Duke Johnson out of Miami.
Yeah.
I think he's an interesting player. I see Detroit is thinking that Amir Abdullah is an every down back, and I'm not sure that's possible. But the draft didn't quite break right for the Cowboys when they didn't want to give up extra picks to move.
Right. Say, Norm, so since the Cowboys, this is Jeff Feltman, since the Cowboys didn't want to make that move to give up draft picks to move up in the board, what would you have done different in this offseason outside of the draft? What players would you have went after? I mean, what other could they have done besides what they have at the running back position? Because everybody agrees they don't have anything great, but what other options could they have went after?
Boy, Jeff, that's a very good question that nobody seems to want to ask. If the draft wasn't going to provide a runner, would you have paid Murray that kind of money? And my answer is absolutely not.
Right.
I would not. I would not have even thought twice about paying Murray that kind of money. I hear people say, well, they should have gotten the contract done with Dez and then franchised Murray. Now, that's easy to say, but you could also say it about Denver and the wide receiver Thomas there. Sometimes it just takes time to get massive contracts like that done. And I would have loved to have gotten the Dez thing done and franchised Murray for one more year. But as far as the backs out in the marketplace, sorry, I'm not interested in Chris Johnson.
Right.
I'm not interested in Steven Jackson or Pierre Thomas. And the last time I looked at Ray Rice in this league, he wasn't one of the 60 best runners in the National Football League. He was close to being unusable for any NFL team. So I think while the Cowboys would have loved to have gone and gotten that back that bumped Randall back to number 2 or bumped Randall into a battle with McFadden to number 2. That's a very different question of did we have the opportunity to do that? And for me, I didn't see an opportunity to do that.
And Norm, with those Dez contract negotiations and that pushing up against the inability to give the franchise to Murray, how much of that do you feel was a Cowboys' unwillingness to pay Dez at the time, or just that the deadline ultimately made this deal come together?
I think the Cowboys are very leery of paying DeMarco Murray, period. Very leery. I think the Cowboys have come to believe, like a lot of people, which includes me, by the way, that the kind of workload they heaped on Murray last year may well shorten his career and may be, in fact, felt as early as this year. I think the Eagles did a very good thing in getting not only Murray, but Ryan Matthews also, and keeping Sproles to give them 3 very, very good and very usable backs so that if Murray is affected by last year, they have a fallback position.
And Norm, real quick, just to follow up on that, it's something else I've never heard mentioned on the local radio waves, but how much did the Murray miles on his legs and the Dez off-the-field issues combined go, okay, we can take one, but not both of these issues? You know, DeMarco might get hurt. Dez might have a problem. Those are your 2 of your 3 most important positions. Do you want potential problems at 2 of the 3? You've got to pick one. I think they went with the physical specimen that they hope to control. Do you think that had any type of a play in that decision?
I think that's the proper approach to it. I think the greater worry for them, as more and more they hope and believe that Dez may be working his way through the terrible childhood and upbringing he had, that there's nothing they can do about the workload heaped on Murray. And that the backs that have encountered such a workload earlier in NFL history, their history is terrible going forward off huge work years like the one Murray had. And I hope DeMarco Murray's a fine fellow. He didn't complain about the Cowboys not giving him money. He understood it was business. I'm happy he got the Eagles' money. I'm happy for him. And if you're a Cowboy fan, I almost hate to say this, but if that workload does affect Murray, it's a terrible albatross around the neck of the Eagles financially.
Yeah, you just gave him a great white elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much so. So, yes, we were talking to Norm Hitzges of The Ticket here in Dallas, Radio Hall of Famer. I want to shift gears now and go a little bit to the defensive side, and one of the other guys that you got to interview out there at training camp was Randy Gregory. And as you mentioned before, a guy with an amazing amount of talent, but, again, the off-field issues. What were your thoughts on Gregory just kind of as a human being more than a player?
Well, he is being terribly miscast in the people who write about him and I think talk about him. He has tested positive for marijuana several times. I don't know how many times. I have 10 fingers and 10 toes. I don't know how many times, okay? I don't know how many times it was overlooked at Nebraska. I don't know any of that.
So is Feltman, by the way, but that's a different story. Keep going.
Yeah, we have no drug policy here at the Sports Narrative, fortunately for
I
you.
don't think he's a dope smoker by nature. I think what he has is real human problems. Yeah. He apparently has a fairly significant problem that's like bipolar.
Yeah.
And that bipolar people tend to get detached at times and very depressed at times.
Amen.
It was, according to many people, in these times that Gregory smoked dope and quite honestly smoked a lot of it. And you so hesitate to wander into this area and try to sound like a doctor. And I don't know if Randy Gregory, you never cure bipolar.
Nope.
You deal with bipolar. And I hope he's been diagnosed now. He's getting help now. Lord, if only Charles Haley had been diagnosed and got help 15 years before he finally did. And I hope that Gregory's got it under control.
Yeah.
Who knows if he tests positive for doping again, he's going to get suspended. But I now look at what the Cowboys did in taking the chance on him in the second round, and I think it's a worthwhile chance because you're not trying to reclaim just any player. You're trying to reclaim a good player.
Yeah, the talent there is definitely without question. It's a matter of, as you mentioned, the mental side of it. And one of the other interesting things, I thought one of the other interesting interviews you had out at training camp was with Charles Haley. And
yes,
Charles seemed a bit perturbed at his dealings with Randy Gregory. Does that concern you at all?
It does, because Charles is very blunt. He's very, very blunt.
That's what he does best.
And he was very blunt. And he was brought to camp in large part just to work with Randy Gregory.
Yeah.
And what he was perturbed by was Gregory giving off the air that he knew it all already. And just because he practiced a move a couple of times, I got that one down. And that ain't the way it works in the league. I like the way Randy Gregory has looked in camp so far. But I will tell you this. I also want to see him against starting solid tackles. Because he is small. He is a small pass rusher.
Sounds to me like somebody who...
a 330-pound tackle gets his hands on Gregory, who is, I don't know if he's 250 right now.
Wow.
If he gets his hands on him, now, Gregory does have the speed to work around tackles, there ain't any question of that. But I want to see him do this on a regular basis, number one. Number two, he's going to have to perfect a lot of escape moves because he is not going to bull rush anybody in the National Football League. Well, he might bull rush a running back, okay?
Right.
But he's going to have to learn the little idiosyncrasies of a small man trying to escape a big man in the pursuit of the quarterback.
And that was actually one of the things about him at Nebraska that I noticed in the scouting was that he did get washed out a lot. Like if they ran the ball at him, he would get washed out of play, so that's interesting. I want to look at the secondary there, Norm, and of course we start with the loss of Orlando Scandrick. How big of a loss is that for you?
Well, it's huge because if I were asked to name the Cowboys' best defensive player last year, I would say Orlando Scandrick.
Yeah.
I know people would say Rolando McClain, but he was in and out of games. He was dinged a little. And Scandrick only played 14 games last year. Remember, he was suspended for a couple of games.
That's right, for the Molly at the start of the season.
Yeah, exactly right. And in those 14 games, Orlando Scandrick averaged being on the field at defensive back and special teams 69 plays a game.
Wow.
Over a 16-game season, that would be slightly over 1,100 plays in a season. That's 1,100 plays that a player not nearly as talented as Mo Claiborne will have to play this year. But that being said, here's my next worry. Boy, you all know football, and you know defensive backs get hurt.
Yeah.
What if another one gets hurt?
Nor would you say it'd be easier to replace a player who creates more turnovers at that cornerback position, or kind of a grinder, stick to the guy like Scandrick is? Because he's kind of that bulldog player who's not going to let his man beat him, and he is going to wrap up on a tackle. I mean, he's a tough son of a gun.
And he's the only defensive back I've seen on this team who could be called a solid blitzer.
Yeah,
when he would come from the nickel cornerback spot to blitz, he would create havoc. And that nickel corner is becoming so hard to play in the league now because the outside, the corners themselves, the right or left corners, have a sideline to work with as at least a partial helper in covering up a receiver. When when you line up on the slot covering the Julian Edelmans of the world, or maybe when you play Pittsburgh, the Wheatons of the world, or the
Cole
Kid
Beasley.
Cooks. Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
Those guys can run anywhere they want on the field, and it's a hard job. It's going to be hard to replace Skandrick. He's a good player.
And, one of the guys that's also going to be doing that, the first-round pick, Byron Jones, I have a worry, Norm, and you brought this up to me last year because we were talking about Tyrone Crawford, and remember there was a lot of discussion about is he an end, is he a tackle, what position is he going to play, and I know you were very concerned about just what exactly his role is, and of course he settled into a nice role. But one of the things they've done thus far with Byron Jones is he's played corner, he's played safety, he hasn't been able to settle into one spot, and being a rookie, though he's very intelligent, I worry that that's going to really hurt his development.
Well, I would have cast him as a safety and left him there, quite honestly. Cast him as a safety and maybe made dime back. The injury to Skandrick, however, complicates things a little bit. That would mean that in the nickel, you're playing Claiborne and Patman, which it appears they're going to do right now.
Right.
That worries me a little bit. But I think I'd have gotten Jones to the position he belongs in the National Football League. And if you say, well, wait a minute, maybe they need a versatile guy like that. Well, they've already got another versatile guy like that. They've got Corey White, who can play corner, or he can play slot receivers, he can play safety. Now, he isn't a great player, but he's a solid player, capable of playing any of those, very versatile. I think I'd have gotten Jones to the position I believe he'll challenge for a spot in.
And especially,
all that said, I ask you this. Tell me what happens to this team if either one of the starting safeties get hurt.
Well, and I was just about to say, with Wilcox being a little dinged up right now as well, that could be a real problem.
Yeah, it causes you to worry because we get into something the Giants are facing right now, and that's cluster injuries.
Right.
If you can often take an injury, even to a good player at a position, but if you start to get multiple injuries in one of the positional groups, boy, you can be in such trouble.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's take a quick look at the other NFC East bunkmates. First of all, the mess in Washington, Norm, with RG3. Do you think the Redskins should just cut bait at this point?
I'd cut RG3. If I could, I'd cut Daniel Snyder first.
Yes.
But that's not going to happen. They're just that franchise has no direction, and Snyder, for a lot of years, won't let the people he employs to run the team actually run the team. To some degree, he's reminiscent of Jerry.
I was going to say, we're familiar with that for a long time here.
But Jerry at least can say, do you like those 3 Super Bowl rings? I hope you like them very much. At least Jerry can hold up a ring.
Yeah.
Snyder holds up an empty bag. And if they don't do well, they're going to fire Jay Gruden, and he'll be on to another coach. And he hired an interesting general manager. But I think if we're up to Gruden and the general manager, Griffin will be gone right now.
I agree.
Is Daniel Snyder going to allow that?
I don't know. It's a lot of marketing dollars there as well, and I think that might be a factor there. Well, speaking of teams that seem no one seems to know where they're going, what are your thoughts on the Chip Kelly offseason and just how that thing is going?
I think this is one of the most dangerous teams in the National Football League.
Yep.
Kelly at Oregon built an unbelievable speed team. Good Lord, he built this team on speed. And one of the things people don't realize about Chip Kelly, I'm sure you guys do, is that Chip Kelly runs a fast offense, but it's not a fast passing offense.
Yeah,
it's a fast running offense.
That's why he's got those 3 running backs up there.
Yep.
Yeah, and if Sam Bradford is well, oh my good, Sam Bradford was developing in St. Louis. He just got hurt.
Yep.
you could see steps he was taking. And in this offense with primo runners and a really good receiver in the kid Matthews out of Vanderbilt, who just came on so strong last year, I think it's a very, very dangerous team. And now the key there, though, is they got rid of a defensive coordinator whom I don't think knew what he was doing.
Clearly not.
He kept putting his cornerbacks on an island, and they get singed. But he's gone to a speed defense. He's got excellent linebackers. I think this is a very, very dangerous football team if Bradford stays healthy.
All right, Norm, I'm going to get you one last football question. We're going to talk a little Rangers quickly, and that is your overall Super Bowl pick. I don't think you've even given that out on your show yet, so we're looking for an exclusive here. Right now, if gun to your head, you have to pick a Super Bowl matchup. What do you got?
Well, I obviously want to see all the shakeout of the injuries and everything, though there probably won't be many more that affect teams this weekend. I think this Super Bowl for me is the Cowboys.
Oh,
and
yes.
I keep worrying about a team on the other side, lads. I want to keep your attention on the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh.
That's a team they've rebuilt on the fly from the championship team of a couple of years ago, and it's pretty interesting. They've got some pretty interesting players there. The coach knows what he's doing. The general manager knows what he's doing. Pretty interesting situation in Baltimore. That'd be my long shot on the other side.
Yeah, Norm Bowers sounds more composed than he is, but he just threw his Jets hat down the stairs. He's really upset. Now, I don't know if we can continue the show.
Yes.
Let me just say one thing about a quarterback there. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the Jets quarterback now.
Thank goodness.
When he was with Chan Gailey, who's also with the Jets now.
That is true.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, when he was with Gailey in Buffalo, never threw less than 23 touchdown passes in a season.
There it is, boys.
Wow.
Gailey understands him, and that defense of the Jets is good, guys. That's a good defense. And if Fitzpatrick can manage and throw about 26, 28 touchdown passes this year, Jets may actually be fairly interesting.
From your lips to God's ears, Norm. All right. Well, speaking of teams that seem to have been resurrected, how about the little Texas Rangers? As I have to say, on this show, the week before you said it, in fact, the week before anybody said it, our own Dustin Koenig said the Rangers will make the playoffs. And we all looked at him like he had grown an extra head. And yet, here we are.
Yeah, when I said that about 2.5 weeks ago, everybody looked at me like I'd grown another head in the studio.
Because everyone's paying attention to the Cowboys, Norm. No one, and this is one of the reasons why I do think that the fan interest hasn't been as big as everyone counted this team out for dead in June, and I included was in that category. And so while everyone then goes away to Oxnard and in the media is paying attention to the Cowboys, they just didn't see how this thing was coming together. And for me, one of the big telling factors was the fact that the Rangers controlled their destiny out of the best of these teams. They had the fewest games against the hardest competitors. They had the most games against the teams in the wild card they were chasing. And the hardest opponent they have, Houston, they're leading the season series. And so I'm with you. I think this is a team that I'm not quite sure I'm where you were at a few weeks ago and thinking they'll catch the Astros, but they're going to make it a close race.
What we couldn't know is that Lazarus would be risen from the dead since you chew.
Yes.
He looked like burger meat until the All-Star break. And all of a sudden, he's one of the best offensive players in baseball. Yeah. Elvis Andrus' game has picked up. The return of the pitchers obviously helped. But I tell you what, guys, the star of this team is John Daniels.
Yeah.
He just kept adding, subtracting, adding, subtracting, adding. Go get Hamels, go get Beekman, go get Dyson, go get Venable, go get two catchers when his got hurt, Wilson and Jimenez. Keep going, add Hamilton. He's added Drew Stubbs. Let's bring the kid Faulkner up from the minor leagues. Let's bring up Hansel Alberto because it's a little better option for us at shortstop than Rosales. Keep going, keep going, keep going. this team looks nothing like the team that began the year. The bullpen is totally remade. Do you remember who our 8th and 9th inning guys were to start the year?
Sheppers and Feliz.
Good Lord!
Yeah. now,
I mean, we kept Keone Kella on the staff because we had nobody else. He wasn't supposed to be in the majors this year. And I just think John Daniels has pulled a gigantic jackrabbit out of the hat.
And another underrated move by Daniels, sending Kella down a few weeks ago to basically give him a 10-game rest in the middle of the season and help keep that arm charged for the pennant run.
Amen. And now, I don't think it happened soon enough. I think it should have happened before it did. But saying to Odor, okay, this is it, you're lost. Go back to the minor leagues. Just go back. And then when they needed somebody, not recalling him a couple of weeks later, saying, no, you got to go down and get your act really together. He's been a different player since he returned.
Now, Norm, how much? Because I agree with you that JD should get a lot of credit here, and Bowers has been on the JD bandwagon for a long time here. Huge fan of his. But how much of this goes to Bannister too? Because I've been really impressed with how he's handled, like you were saying, Chu first half of the year, he could have given up on him. He didn't, and Chu's responded. Andrews he was the worst shortstop in the American League for the first 2-3 months of this season.
Yeah.
Now he's playing decent. Bannister's got to get some credit for what this team is doing right now, doesn't he?
Yes. And the way he challenged Sin-Shu Chu by dropping him number 8 in the lineup, it was hey, you know where you go after you drop the number 8 in the lineup? The bench.
Yeah.
I didn't have to tell him, but hey, you're hitting behind Robinson Chirinos? Really?
And this is a first-year manager, and Sin-Shu Chu just signed a 7-year, $150 million contract, and he had the guts to drop him to 8th. And that's one of the moves I'm talking about with Bannister, that I just love this guy. I love the hire.
So, Norm, talking about Daniels, is the toughest decision he has to make this offseason whether or not to try and move Shin-Soo Choo? Because I'm not sure you can believe that this is the player you're going to get over the next 5 years remaining on that contract. And if you, in his value, probably will never be higher than it is after this season.
Well, the problem is you got 5 years left at $100 million. In fact, $102 million. And if you still have, and you're proper in saying this, if you still have that, I'm not certain this is real feeling. Let me tell you, at $102 million, any general manager that has the same feeling is not going to bite.
Yeah.
It's just not going to bite.
Yep, I agree with that.
You're still going to have to pay. You're not going to get anything great for Chu, and you're going to have to pay some of the freight.
It's a Vernon Wells
right
type
now,
trade. Yeah, it's a money dump.
Yeah. Right now, I'd stay with him. He looks like the player that was such an impactful offensive player for years. He looks like that player again. Now, he isn't the outfielder he once was.
Right.
But he's still a pretty good player. I think the question in the offseason, guys, is what do you do with Josh Hamilton? I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Because
with the bulky knee and the injury concerns. Granted, he doesn't cost you a lot of money.
And that's
but
the flip side. You're not paying him a lot, so
maybe you talk him into retiring.
Worst case scenario, you just eat your losses.
I don't know if you simply turn him loose, but you didn't invest much in him.
Yep.
And he's the same Josh Hamilton you worried about when you acquired him. You saw a guy that's injury prone. He's always got something wrong with him. And bless his soul, I think that's what happens when you abuse your body with drugs for 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, a last couple of questions here for the great Norm Hitzges, who honors us by joining us here on the Sports Narrative Show. Norm, I wanted to get some of your thoughts on some of the other pennant races out there, some of the teams that you're liking towards the World Series, and one team in particular, as Mr. Feltman is a diehard Cubs fan. Your thought on the your thoughts on the Cubs prospects for the postseason, and maybe who you like playing in the Fall Classic.
I like Toronto versus the Cubs in the World Series.
How about that? Oh, Mr. Feltman just fainted. He just literally fell on the floor. Toronto versus
here
the Cubs.
is the one problem the Cubs face. They're going to have to win a one-game playoff.
Let me tell you why that doesn't bother you,
already,
Norm.
The people already in the playoffs don't want to see the Cubs.
No. And you're going to have Jake Arrieta in your one-game playoff, and after that masterpiece that he put together the other night and the run that he has been on this year, I got two questions that I'm going to rely on your memory for, Norm, and this is the first one. Can you think of a player who was a year before the worst pitcher in baseball and then turns it around and is now competing for a Cy Young Award against Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke?
Well, late last season, Arrieta started to give off signs that he was figuring it out.
Yep.
Late last season. And I don't mean this to say anything, but it happened. And Jeff especially knows that myself and my partner Dave Lawson play in the biggest, nastiest year-to-year fantasy baseball league you can imagine. It has baseball agents, it has baseball consultants in the league, and we maneuvered like crazy to get an early first-round pick and took Jake Arrieta this year.
Very nice.
Because as Dave told me, he said, Norm, look at the way Jake Arrieta's figuring it out. And let me tell you something. I'm going to warn you about a team next year. I'm going to warn you about the Indians.
What did I say 2 months ago? It's
did.
the pitching staff, isn't it, Norm?
Carlos Carrasco, Danny Salazar, Trevor Bauer.
Yep.
They're starting to figure it out in the major leagues.
Some guy named Kluber.
And oh my God, you could have a staff of just,
Kluber.
They have stuff, man. It's just like the Cubs can run Arrieta and Lester at you back to back. Cleveland can run some guys with arms at you.
Oh, that is awesome. That is music to Mr. Feltman's ears. Well, thank you so much, Norm. And thanks to Mary as well for putting up with you talking sports all the way on the drive home. Greatly appreciate that. And by the way, we are on YouTube, so we're on video. So we need to have Mary in the studio at some point. And
yes, you do. You don't want me with her, but you need to have Mary.
Exactly.
My only chance to drive views.
Find more by subscribing to this channel and visiting us at www.thesportsnarrative.com. Join us every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central for a live edition of the Sports Narrative radio show hosted by Xena Communications.